My name's Joshua Stenhouse, and I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer for Zerto. And I'm going to talk to you today about the Zerto solution and moving disaster recovery into the software-defined data center, the benefits of that, and then we have a nice treat at the end, which I'm sure you'll find very interesting. So high level, what is Zerto? It's enterprise-class virtual replication, business continuity, and disaster recovery for your virtualized data center. Whether that's your own data center or in a managed service provider in a cloud, then it doesn't really matter. It's all still a virtual environment. And Zerto itself is growing rapidly. We have customers and cloud providers all over the world, from small environments with just 10 or 15 virtual machines up to some huge enterprise and cloud environments with thousands. Irrespective of the size of the customer, the same challenge exists, which is protecting virtual machines running inside your hypervisor. And as I'm sure you all know in the room today, that there are many different solutions available on the market today. But out of all of these different solutions, only one of these is really considered enterprise in class, and that is traditional storage-based replication between two matching storage arrays, and then maybe using something like VMware Site Recovery Manager on top of that to try and integrate it into the virtual environment. And what Zerto is we're replacing both the storage-based replication and Site Recovery Manager, and we're moving it into the hypervisor. We're making it software-defined, giving you the same enterprise functionality, but the simplicity of just using software and being able to select the virtual machines to protect, and then Zerto handles all of the replication and the protection and the automation. But it's not just this. We're also giving you continuous data protection. So in one single software solution, you're getting enterprise-class replication, disaster recovery automation and management, and continuous data protection. One software, one platform, very simple. So our solution, Zerto Virtual Replication, it is completely software only, and it is definitely part of the software-defined data center, which means it is totally storage agnostic. You're not tied into the storage vendor. It doesn't matter which storage you're using between the sites. And it is also hypervisor agnostic. So in the next quarter, we're actually adding Hyper-V support, which maybe is not the best thing to say in this event. But all it means is that we know customers today are predominantly using VMware, but any investment in Zerto is not tying you into that hypervisor for the rest of your infrastructure's life. And most importantly, it is enterprise in class. Zerto will never impact the performance of your protected VMs. So if you were going to design your ideal BCDR solution, what would you look for? Well, usually the first thing on people's list is they want enterprise class replication. They would also probably like continuous data protection and integration of long-term retention. Disaster recovery automation is also a must because, recovering should be automated. But if you're going to have all of these, you've got to have simplicity. And if you take all of these different elements from designing your ideal solution, Zerto is the only solution in the world today that gives you all of this in our software. One software, one interface. So what I'll do now is I'll just take you through each of these different elements and how Zerto delivers them. So if we take enterprise class replication, and I have two data centers here, some hypervisors, and completely different storage. And what Zerto is actually doing is allowing you to replicate and protect your VMs and your applications. And because it's running in the hypervisor and not relying on the underlying storage, it means, as I said, you can replicate from anything to anything. But most importantly, it's actually removing the complexity out of configuring and managing the replication on a storage and LUN basis and just allowing you to select those virtual machines. We only replicate the changes, and we replicate them continuously, which gives you a real-time recovery point objective of just seconds. So the most amount of data you can lose with Zerto replication is typically 10 seconds or less, just using our software in the hypervisor. Now, I mentioned the challenge was protecting virtual machines, but what we see in enterprise environments, as the size grows, then typically you see enterprise applications which are made up of multiple virtual machines. In Zerto, we have the concept of a virtual protection group, which is a consistency grouping of the virtual machines on a per application basis, which allows you to recover them all to the same consistent point in time. If the VMs that form that application are at different timestamps, that can break disaster recovery. With Zerto, they are all at the exact same timestamp. We allow you to recover the whole application and not just the data. And we also allow you to specify SLAs on a per application basis. So what do we do for continuous data protection? There's no agent inside each VM, and we're not using any form of snapshots, so there's no performance impact with our replication. And we keep a journal of all the changes in the recovery site, which allows you to rewind your virtual machines back in time to increments every few seconds in up to 5 days in the past. And the journal will automatically self-manage its space depending on the SLAs that you've defined. So how easy is rewinding back in time with Zerto? It's as simple as this time slider here. So all you do is drag it back, and you can recover from seconds ago, not the last backup, not the last snapshot, seconds. And what does that mean? It means that we're not just protecting you against losing your primary site, we're also protecting against logical failures such as a database corruption or a user error, because you can simply rewind to the point in time before that logical failure occurred. We support both crash and application consistency in this journal. And with this single slider here, the whole application is going to that consistent point in time. So what do we do for disaster recovery automation? Well, failing over with Zerto is as simple as logging into your Zerto manager in your recovery site. We click on this big red failover button. You select the applications which consist of the virtual machines that you want to recover. We go next, next, click failover, and that's how simple Zerto makes disaster recovery. It really does not get any easier than this. And what happens after we click failover? Zerto is going to automatically bring all of the virtual machines online in the recovery site in minutes. Everything that you would need to be done automatically, such as running any scripts, automatically changing IP addresses, Zerto is going to handle for you. It's taking all of the manual work out of recovery, which means the recovery time objective is just minutes. We also allow you to test the failover, and in the same few clicks, we will bring the virtual machines online in the recovery site, connect them to an isolated network, and power them on, allowing you to do your disaster recovery testing in working hours without shutting anything down in production and with no break in the replication. And just as important as failing over and testing the failover is if you do fail over, how do you fail back? Fail back with Zerto is a single click, and we will automatically reverse the replication, sending just the changes back. You don't have to recreate all of the settings, and you don't have to resend all of the data. It's extremely simple. And speaking of simplicity, what do we do for simplicity? Well, it's completely software only, and it installs in minutes, and there's zero impact for installing the Zerto software into your environment. There's no downtime required. It is just software and virtual appliances in your VMware environment. And just because it's a VMware user group and sometimes people like some technical content, that these virtual replication appliances are extremely small in their footprint. It's a custom Linux appliance completely managed by Zerto. It's one vCPU, 1 to 3 gigabytes of RAM, 12 gigabytes of disk space, and we require one per host that you're replicating from and to, so we can continue the continuous replication as you vMotion VMs between your hosts. Because it's just software and very easy to install, it means there's no professional services required to install, manage, and maintain Zerto, and it reduces the costs because it's so simple. So here we have the Zerto interface, but everything from our replication appliances, the protection groups, a failover, a test, is all managed from this single management interface. One interface to manage everything. And this removes complexity, because if you look at the old way of doing enterprise disaster recovery, you would have to configure the storage replication in one interface using the storage team, yet with Zerto, it's all managed by the virtualization team in the hypervisor. And it just reduces your administration. It's one person or one team for managing your replication and your disaster recovery in your software-defined data center. It doesn't matter about the underlying storage, which is why Zerto is simple. What do we do for long-term retention? Well, because we already have a copy of your virtual machines in your recovery site, you can then use Zerto to keep more than 5 days of change and keep copies of your virtual machines going back further in time. So if you have some long-term storage, then we're just going to give you off-site backups on a schedule, and it eliminates your backup windows. Because it's running on your replicated data, then you don't have to be concerned with when your backups are running, because it's not in production. Your production data is always still working, never running on a snapshot. It's just making it simple. And that's just within your own site. What you can also do is then move that data up into the cloud. You can send it to tape, you can remove tape, you can send it to cloud. However you want to configure this long-term retention, Zerto is giving you a platform and the flexibility to move, replicate, and back up your data how you see fit. And if we put all of these together, this is why Zerto is now the new standard in enterprise disaster recovery and replication. But that's what we do today. And I think you're all here to learn about what you should be doing tomorrow. And I'm very sorry to use the word cloud, but I have to. It's marketing. But if you look at where Zerto is going, then we're actually becoming a cloud fabric, in that because it's hypervisor agnostic and we're supporting replication between our managed service providers, cloud providers, and public cloud, then it's becoming a new layer in your data center, which, if you look at the way IT infrastructure is going over the next few years, here you can see, as we currently have, our siloed infrastructures with predominantly VMware, the different clouds, and separate backup and disaster recovery. And if you take this over the next few years, what we see is a convergence and a commoditization of both the hypervisors, your clouds, and backup and disaster recovery. And if you take where IT is going and then you compare this to the Zerto roadmap, we are following the exact same trend, and we are becoming a cloud mobility fabric, a platform, one solution for mobility, retention, backup, disaster recovery, everything.